Good morning, everybody. You are listening to Procure Smarter with Dr. Sharon Cook. Today, we're going to be talking to Drew Murray, Vice President of Development of the M Group. Stay tuned, everybody. Hey, how's it going?
It's good. We are, I don't know if you know this, we're in the home stretch of our third child. So she will be born in the next few days.
Oh my gosh, how exciting.
I know. So it's a little bonkers over here, but it's awesome, obviously.
And you're in Texas now, right?
Yeah, yes. I moved to Dallas during the pandemic. I got two young kids, and DC it was a tough place.
Right.
I mean, we had a small little house, and so we were all in each other's stuff. So it was nice to get a little bit more room.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I follow you, as you probably know. I don't comment very often, but I follow you on your Facebook. And I see pictures of your little ones, and I'm like, oh my God, this is Drew, who
It,
I've known forever.
yeah, it's tough. I see people that I've been doing this industry for like 15 or 16 years, and I see people and they're like, you are not the person that I mean, like they've literally known me as long as like
Right.
I've known these people at some point. My parents, I see these people way more than I see my parents, and they're like, I
Right.
mean, you basically grew up with me in this industry, which is kind of neat because they probably, when I first started, didn't think that I was capable of raising kids and having.
Well, that's interesting because when I met you with your dad.
Yeah, yeah,
And
who retired this year.
well, that's what I was going to say. I saw on media that he retired.
Yeah, I mean, look, he had a super long run in this industry. He started the business, you know, in our family's basement. So it was, he loves to play golf, and it was time for him to, kind of take on that challenge of, instead of worrying about the day-to-day issues, to try to get his handicap down.
Right. And he's loving retirement life?
I think so. I mean, I do think when you work in such a niche, tight knit industry, I'm sure he misses familiar faces. So,
Right.
he went out to. I couldn't go to HC Vegas because my wife's pregnant, so he went out there in my place and enjoyed it. And he still kind of is on the periphery in terms of going to some industry events, which we kind of uh, knew going into it. So yeah, he's out there, but this is the first time the company's been run by somebody without our last name. So
Right.
it's
Right.
an interesting time.
So let me ask you, explain to me, like, Bo took over the position, Bo Burdette, right?
Yes, yeah. So Bo had worked for us. Actually, I've known Bo my whole life. We grew up together, which was a huge positive for us. I think the biggest thing in understanding a family business, and we're like, we're above 50 employees. We're a good sized family business, but he understands family dynamics. He understands, you know, uh, he understands relationships, and
Yeah.
that was hugely important for us in our situation, because I think the most difficult thing in coming into a family environment is, how do you manage the family?
Right.
Managing the business is going to be a task you're going to have to take on in any situation, but how do you manage the relationships in the family? How do you handle the dynamics? And he had worked for us previous, and then he went and worked for another company and was very successful, and then he came back to us, and he was doing an awesome job, running the Southeast for us, and really kind of took the bull by the horns. And instead of just doing sales and project management, he was revamping how we did business. And I think my brothers and I and my dad started to see, that this was someone who it wasn't just a sales thing for him. He was interested in making the company more efficient and making the company more profitable, and coming up with solutions to better the business as a whole, not just his little market.
That's awesome. Okay. So,
Yeah.
well, let me say thanks so much for joining me. You are my very first guest, and I am super excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I mean, like you said, we've known each other a long time, and you've kind of seen our company and myself grow, and it was neat to get this invite.
So, all right. So, for those who are not aware of M Group used to be Meridian, right?
Yeah, so I mean, going way, way back when I was like 1 or 2 years old, it was called Meridian Accents. It was actually a custom rug company, founded in my parents' basement. So, the story I always tell people is I would wake up when I was 5 or 6, I would put my bed up against the wall, and 3 or 4 employees would come in what was then my basement bedroom and start designing rugs. My father was in carpet and textiles. Were from LaGrange, Georgia, Interface and Milliken, and he worked for Columbus Mills and then Lotus and then Durkin. So we were always in the hospitality world, and he was in the commercial carpet world, and that was the very start of M Group, manufacturing and designing custom area rugs produced in Mexico.
Well, a lot has changed since then. I was on the company website a couple days ago, and your product line has expanded tremendously.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it wasn't. I always look at expansion of product line. Is it needs based, or are we trying to bring product to the market? And honestly, for the most part, we would do a good job doing a small scope on a project, and then we'd have an owner or a contractor or a purchaser say, can y'all pick up this scope? And we kind of, it was like this organic growth from, we did the rugs, and then at some point we got into just stone countertops, right when granite became such a big deal in the hospitality industry. And then we became a pretty nice sized company in the granite business, and then we started saying, okay, well, the granite sits on millwork. Let's get into millwork like 15 or 16 years ago. And then quartz became the big deal after granite. And, and,
Uh-huh.
and then, we started, I think our big breakthrough was we got into the brand specs. And so right after school, I went up to Washington, D.C. with the sole goal of, how do we take our company, which is, chasing cranes. We'd go to a job site. And I remember my first time working in the company, I went to a job site, walked in, asked the superintendent on the job site, "Hey, do you need stone countertops?" And that was a neat way to learn, but it wasn't a way to scale a business. So the thought was to go to the brands and have get involved with the brands and get specified and approved, so that instead of chasing cranes, you're in the specs. And so those people, those contractors and purchasers, are then calling you and saying, hey, this is what you're approved to do, please do it. And
Right.
so then we
Right.
got into shower pans, shower surrounds, and I spent 12 years, the last 12 years in DC. And you look up, and on a typical Marriott project, we're supplying the shower pans, the doors, the surrounds, the extended stay cabinets, the stone tops, the public area millwork, and you're we're one of the most specified companies on these projects. So it's crazy how the growth happened, but it was organic growth, and we have the project people to back it up.
Right. And you didn't mention it, but I do remember working with you once on a quote. You are also doing case goods, right? And now soft seating.
Yeah. So, and in the case good world, it's awesome because we don't, everyone knows the kind of mass production big guys in the industry. That's not us. That's not who we claim to be. We pick a number of projects each year that we go after hard, that kind of have what we do, as opposed to maybe a little bit more complicated, a little bit more higher end. Couple examples: we're finishing up the St. Regis in Chicago right now, which is obviously a high end project. It's super cool architecture. And we just finished the Hyatt Centric Charlotte, which was one of my favorite projects, because the case goods and the upholstery and everything it was more like joinery millwork, and it took a lot of engineering. So
Hmm.
it wasn't just make a desk and put it in. It was, how do you hang it? How do you hang the floating shelves? How do you hang the bench that's floating? And it had all this integrated joinery that, it was interesting for us and our team, because it was a challenge. And
Right.
the purchaser brought us into it knowing that we were a good fit for this project, where it was a huge purchaser, Buyer Brown, and they have other projects, and there are projects that we might not be a fit for, and
Right.
this one was, and we really knocked it out of the park.
Right. Now, I saw on the website, do you actually have two K-Skid lines? Like, is Gainwell one of them? Because I think I saw like there was a 3-star, 4-star, maybe 5-star.
Yes, it's an interesting question. Yeah, Gainwell's our partner. That's who we do a lot of stuff in Vegas with. We do the higher end, this Four Seasons project. We've done, some upper end work with them. And then we also have a partner, Evo, who is based in Eastern Europe. And they do a ton of our public area millwork packages. They
Mhm.
do, um, we work with them on quick ship stuff. We work with them on, you know, uh, more of the, um, laminate, like not the ultra high end finishes,
Right.
although they're public areas that we've done. I mean, we've done stuff for Resorts World and other cool custom clients that is super high end. So in the bulk production, they do 3 and 4 star furniture, but in the public areas, it's wide open.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this. People are going to want to know, here you come right out of school.
Yep.
Your family sends you to DC and you're tasked with getting into the big guys, Marriott. Like that had to have been intimidating. Like people are going to want to know, like, how did you do that? How did you get your foot in the door?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I would say a lot of it's probably luck. I went there a lot, probably annoyingly a lot. I think I was very naive, thinking that, oh, this would be easy, and it certainly wasn't. But I think going in and not feeling, I didn't understand the the grandeur of the situation.
Right.
I just thought it was like what you did. So
Yeah.
I would go there and, obviously my father introduced me to some people, but it really was, it took a couple years. There was someone at Marriott who's not there now. Her name is Cindy Miasis, and she was like a pseudo mentor. Like she, for some reason, took me under her wing. She didn't put us in the specs immediately, but, we provided value to her and we provided insight. And even before we were getting any work or any specifications, we were working. And I think it did teach me and, the people I'm now leading in the company, like, look, this is not a microwave business. You're not going to walk in some
Right.
brand and say, here's who I am. Thank you for your money and the projects. And you walk out. It's not that way. So it did take a long time. And then once we got in, one spec, all right, let's crush that spec. Like if we're doing countertops for a Fairfield Inn, let's be the best in that business and let's provide value. Let's have customer service. Let's have the shop drawings come back quickly. Let's do all the things we could do. And then I think once they find a trusted partner, then they're willing to bring you on board and put you on some other specs and continue to help you grow your business. And, what's good for you is good for them. And ultimately, it's all good for the franchisees.
Right. And I could only imagine, just speaking from the purchasing side, it was probably refreshing to have this younger guy come in who's willing to learn, who's willing to listen, who doesn't know it all. And they can really kind of show you, hey, this is what we need. And you take that and you go with it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, not knowing it all was never my problem. And I don't think it ever will be. Not knowing anything at that point was. And so there's probably things I said or tried to communicate that was just flat wrong. And I am indebted to some of those people who sat there and listened to me without laughing,
Right.
or and there were times people say, look, I don't know if that's right. And I'd go back and, I'd figure out it wasn't right. And I'd call them up and say, look, I appreciate you telling me that. Like, I may not have come off as, an expert then, but I mean, I had no experience. And I think when we hire people, we just hired a guy in Nashville, incredibly nice guy, really smart, a go-getter. He's green. And I said, look, you go in there and you have a good attitude and you're affable and you're respectful of their time, they're going to want to work with you.
Hmm.
And I had a customer call me yesterday, and she said she's an awesome contractor, and she said, "Yeah, I met with your guy. He is just such a nice guy." She gets. I walked him through my job site. I showed him, not just what you guys are doing, but how to build a building. Understand construction, how to talk the talk, And she goes, he's green, but he's a person I'm willing to help because he seems like such a nice person. And I think those are the things that I learned is like people are willing to help you, and
Yeah.
you do a good job and you tell the truth, and do what you say you're going to do, and if there is issues, you bring it up kind of early in the process. I think people at least respect it.
I love that. I love that there are people out there who are still willing to take somebody new under their wings, be patient, show them the ropes, give them some guidance. I really love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's neat walking into. I use Marriott example because I was there a lot when I was living in DC full time. You see a lot like on the vendor community side. You see the same people in there all the time, and there's a reason because it's such an important player in our industry. As a supplier, you need to make sure you're doing everything you can to support the brands if that's the business you're in. But it's nice when someone new steps in, and you know a lot of times people in our industry get hired for their Rolodex and their relationships. And look,
Exactly.
I think that's an incredible of incredible value. But I think there is also value in not knowing it all, which you said, which is kind of cool to me.
It's true. I have had people make me feel like the value that I bring to the table is the contacts.
Right.
And and there's some truth in that. I've been doing this a really long time, but if you only see my contacts, you're missing it's the iceberg. You're missing the best part of me.
Right. And there's a reason, in my opinion, when we bring someone new, they say, "Oh, you guys," some of the people who've been in our company a long time say, "Oh, you guys know everyone." People, yeah, you may know someone's name, but do you have a relationship? And that relationship's not based on just smiling and waving and knowing someone. At some point, you've worked with them. There's a mutual working respect, and
Right.
that it's more than knowing people. It's knowing people and saying, you know, okay, if someone asked that guy what he really thought about me as a person and as a professional, what's he gonna say? And I
Right.
think that's bigger than just knowing someone, because I think in an industry where contacts is such a big deal, it's the relationships, it's the things that can carry you. If I went to another job, would I be able to call these 20 people and would they support me still? So
Agreed.
that's an interesting way to look at it.
Agreed. I mean, at the end of the day, at least for me, this is hospitality. If you cannot walk hospitality, you shouldn't be in it.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, it's the core of the business we're in. I mean, eh, I go to, I was at a design firm yesterday here in Dallas, and like you walk in and like I can tell they're a successful firm because everyone there was, hospitable. They were happy you were there. They were in good spirits. They were working on cool stuff, which is always great. But the point is like, this industry, it takes a certain personality type and person to work in it because of the type of work we're doing.
Right, right. So let me ask you, M Group, it looks like to me you guys have grown into this international brand, and you have a big presence out there. So, what did it take to break into the international market, and what were the challenges that you guys faced?
Yeah. Well, I think domestically is pretty straightforward. International, especially in Europe and the Middle East, there's a certain set of rules, not just in each country, but in each city, and like the way to do business is just different. I think anyone who listens to this podcast knows that if you're doing business in the Middle East, like it's not as cut and dry as it is here stateside. Like
Right,
there's a rhythm to it. Stuff takes forever. We've
right,
done some mega projects in the Middle East, and I think that's the allure. I know so many purchasing firms and design firms have Middle East offices. Is there's huge amounts of capital. There's projects that are you know huge projects that would make or break careers, but there's a rhythm to it that it takes time, and it's not you walk in, you got to have connections on top of connections, and you got to understand how business is done. I mean, we've got projects in the Middle East that we have contracts for that were signed 6 years ago that still aren't moving.
wow,
So I just think, and you can't bank on it. So like if you're looking at your balance sheet and saying, "Oh, let's let's roll. We have this mega project that we have a contract on. Well, I mean, it's been 6 years and some of the projects are still not out of the ground. And I don't think that's an anomaly. I think it's just the way business is done. And I think Europe's the same way. Like Europe is, you know, contractors operate a little bit differently, brands operate a little differently, um, purchasing companies operate differently. It's just we ended up having opening a few offices overseas because it made sense for us to have people who understood, that the way business is done in those markets, as because we just could not, with the amount of business we were doing stateside, we couldn't figure it out from here.
Right. All right. All right. So, is there something out there that still excites you? Is there something that you want to go and tackle?
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, I'm a pretty excitable person, so I mean, I look for I'm a competitor. I was a college athlete. I still like every deal that we get closed that you've really put a lot of effort into, like that still excites me. And like I was talking to someone who runs an installation business that is kind of like a subsidiary of ours, and she was saying, man, the highs are so high and the lows are so low. Like I've worked 6 months on this job and we ended up not getting it, and I'm down in the dumps. And then 4 hours later, I get a call that we got signed up for a project, and I didn't even think we were going to get. And so to me, it could be
Right.
a mentally draining business because
Yeah.
you could lose two jobs that you really efforted and worked hard on and have tons of hours and money into in terms of pre-production and everything that goes along with trying to get a deal done, and then you can win one and you're like on cloud nine. So I think, especially like post pandemic world, which I obviously we're not there yet, but I think I'm just ready for jobs to start moving forward again at a rate similar to a few years back, and just feeling the feeling of winning jobs that you've really put forth a lot of effort on. And I think because so many jobs are on hold, there's a lot of work in all these jobs that are on hold. Every
Right.
time you hear a job that goes on hold, it's not like you didn't, there's so much effort to get it to that point. So when these jobs start rolling around, all right, I'm excited. There's some life in it. You read on LinkedIn that they got some financing. Okay,
I
this
saw
thing.
that this morning. I know what you're talking about.
So like you see these jobs and you're like, okay, I'm back, or maybe I'm not back, but I have an opportunity to, this one's real again. And I think for anyone at least in the vendor community, is like some of these jobs rolling back around. And that to me, that's exciting because I think the last few months, although, we've done pretty decent through the pandemic, I just think we're not used to not having these jobs go all the way through. And
Right.
it's exciting to me that projects are rolling again.
I agree. Like I wouldn't call myself an adrenaline junkie, but there is a lot to be said. You're right. The highs are high and the lows are very low. And the last, 18 months as a buyer, to see all the projects that we had out there just one by one, fall to the wayside, was very disheartening. So when I see things on LinkedIn, people are like, "Oh, we have financing," or I see a designer who's like, "Hey, look at this finished product." It gives me a lot of hope that we're going to turn the corner and we're going to be out there and we're going to be making deals again and we're going to be talking to people, and that's what's got me excited that it is around the corner.
Yes, and I think anyone still in this business, like if you were going to get out of hospitality, if you weren't all the way in, you would have gotten out in the past 18 months. Because
Yeah.
I mean, you got to have a real optimism because our industry got hammered.
Yeah.
And I think you do have to have a real optimism moving forward. And I have that. And maybe at some points it's blind. And I know our company has that because, we've brought people on, and, so maybe it's blind optimism, but I think at some point, like, it's going to get better. And look, maybe the last 18 months taught us about expectations and client expectations and what we expect out of the clients and what the clients expect out of us in terms of pricing and lead time and delivery and freight and all of the variables that are just causing sleepless nights. So
Right.
it'll be interesting to see
I
how it goes.
I agree. Okay, so you were one of the first people I reached out to when I worked on my doctorate. And as you know, I have a love of all things vendor relationship. So let me ask you, what do you think makes a great first meeting with a potential client?
Yeah, to me, it's less about, I mean, you have to have knowledge of the product, right? So if I go in there and I really think I give a good presentation in terms of concise, what you do, how you do it, what's your value proposition, how are you, it's never go in there and say something negative about your direct competition. It's,
Mhm.
did I convey the value that I create? And I think, in some of the businesses we're in, to some degree, it's a commoditized product. So then the client, the purchaser, the designer's looking at you. All right, if the person in this room is competing with someone who came in here last week, do I trust them more? Will he
Right.
respond quicker? Will he give us options? Will he, handle, if the freight jumps, will he communicate it? So I think for me, a good meeting is one, personally, did I convey what we do and how we do it and what the value proposition is? And two is, I always like to go in there, like, you ask people, well, do you have questions? And, usually people, I think, inherently don't want to ask questions. So then I just start talking about my personal life. And I think, I'm from a big family. I talk about the kids. I just moved to Dallas, so that's a good thing to talk about. But it's funny, like the more you talk about personal, and to me, it's the better they get to know you as a person, the better you get to know them as a person.
Right.
The work part of it becomes easy because there's a built-in, relationship that, I have friends in the industry that I haven't done a deal with in 10 years, but they're awesome people. I don't judge my relationship on them based on if they're giving us jobs or not. And I think if you treat your relationships like that in the meetings you have like that, then I think the success rate is much higher because knowing, like, if they feel like they know me better as a person and as a professional, I think that's the best way to conduct a meeting.
I completely agree. So let me ask you, do you have a pet peeve, something that you go into a meeting and something happens or is said that you're like, oh, this meeting is going south? Is there some sort of tale where you're like, this is just not going to be a good meeting?
I'm trying to think. I like to freewheel it a little bit,
I do too.
so I
Yeah.
don't know where it's gonna go when I walk in, and which is fine. Like, I I think if you stick to script and you're not able to adjust on the fly, like if I'm trying to hammer something and it's just not, either, the client goes, "Yeah, we're not interested in that," or, we have someone for that and it's not going to change. Like, that's the one thing I have a hard time with. If you're working with a client and you've done a ton of pre-production, you're bidding everything, you're giving them options, and then they already have someone.
Right. Right.
Well, all right, I got that. Like, we are that person to certain clients. So I get that if there's a relationship, but then just tell me up front. And,
Right.
we're all adults. Like, don't have me come in and give a presentation if you already have someone.
Right.
If there's nothing I can do or say, even if we're half the cost and three times better the product, if you have someone, great. I'm all for that and loyalty. But the pet peeve would be, if you already have someone, just say, hey, this scope is something we have buttoned up. We're doing a great job with it. And I'll say, good on them and good on you.
You know
And I
what?
think
I think buyers, I think purchasing agents are afraid to say, I just need a number. I just want to compare your number. And I
right.
think that, there's a little bit of shady feeling to it, like I'm using you for number. But I think if you come at it and you're like, listen, I have, for one reason or another, I'm committed to this vendor, but I really need a number. Just say it. Tell them, be upfront about it.
Agreed. And I'll even, to the point now, is I think as you grow in your career, you get a little bit more confidence in understanding how things work. I'll tell someone, look, I know this job's going another way. I'll give you a number. I'll create a market so that you can go to your vendor who you like and you can say, look, there are other options. We are going to use you, but kind of here's the number we're able to get. And I'm sure that's helpful to them. And frankly, if I haven't, I can give a number pretty quickly and do a bid quickly. And then, what I tell our people is, okay, then you started the process with them.
Right.
They saw how you bid jobs. They saw how you communicated. They saw how you responded. So yeah, we didn't get this job. We were never getting this job, but they did see a little bit of your process. And I think
Exactly.
if you can derive value from even your losses or even your opportunities that aren't really opportunities, I think you can create value in your personal brand, your company's brand by just doing the little piece they give you right. Like, I'm fine bidding a job for someone knowing I'm not going to get it just so I can show them what we're capable of.
Right. Okay. One last question. What occupation other than the one you're currently doing would you like to try?
That's a good question. I mean, I was a sports guy, so I think sports would be an awesome answer. And I think, I'm out of athletic ability to the point where I could actually play sports, but I am a die-hard. There's a couple things in life I just family, like that's a without being said, like if I could spend all my days with my family, that would be great. And if there were two things I could do, I would play golf all day, so I'd love to get in the golf industry. I don't know what I would do, but I could literally play golf every day and
That's
be
great.
totally content. Or I am a diehard college football fan, and I would love to, even though it would be a tough business when you're not a little bit younger. I'd love to do like college football recruiting. And I still like it's kind of cheesy, but I still follow like I'm a Georgia fan and I follow Georgia. I go to the games. I'm going to take my kids to the games for the first time this year so they can it can start to seep into their blood. And I mean, I would love to do college football recruiting. And I know that's like a kind of a younger man's game because you got to have no responsibilities and you got to be at the beck and call of these kids. But I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Cool. Cool. Okay. So if there's a designer out there, a hotelier out there, and they're like, hey, that Drew guy sounds interesting. Where can we find you? How can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on, email is, I can give the email or whatnot, and I'm happy to talk to anybody at any time. Obviously, I'm not very shy. Uh, but I'm on LinkedIn actively, and I enjoyed the platform just because, I mean, it's super cool when you see a project that you've worked on. The professional pictures come out, the owners talking about how cool it was. It's not beneath me to say, hey, we played a small part in this, and you know, even though it's not our asset and we're not, you know, it's their deal. I mean, it's cool to see that we were a part of it. So I'm
Right.
all over LinkedIn. You can call me anytime, 706-302-5590. And I mean, we're in a lot of specs. So, you can find us, we're in the market, believe in the industry. So we're still out and about. And yeah, we'd love to work with anybody. And you kind of get what our vibe is, which we like to do good work for good people, and we have a good amount of clients that I've been working for 15 plus years, so there has to be at least some reason why they keep coming back.
Right. Drew, thanks so much for doing this for me.
Yeah,
Say hi to your dad for me.
I
I,
will.
I haven't seen him in a couple years. I'm kind of sad now that I didn't go to Vegas, now that I know he was roaming around.
I didn't go either, so my wife is literally could give birth in the next 20 minutes, so
Well,
I
congratulations on that. That's amazing. Make sure that
yeah,
you post something and let us all know. Do you know what it
yeah,
is?
yeah, it'll be a little girl, so I have
Wow.
a girl, boy, girl. So it's a full house. So if anyone has any awesome jobs that they want to give us to feed this family, please feel free.
Noted, noted. Okay, well, Drew, thank you so much. I am very grateful.
Of course. Yeah. Anytime. Thank you for having me.
All right, have a good day.
All right. See you, Sharon.
You have been listening to Procure Smarter with Dr. Sharon Cook. Follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram at Procuresmart. Stay tuned next week. We're going to be talking to Norman Hare from Elevate Business to Business and his new adventures. If you're a supplier in the hospitality industry, and would like to talk about what your company is doing new and different in the space, I would love to talk to you. You can reach out to me at email sharron@procuresmartco.com.